Farah, aka Dr. Laurent, the nurse career coach. Today we have a very special guest. We have Teresa Sanderson, and we're going to be talking about all things entrepreneurship and why nurses should start their own side hustle, making money move. So, Teresa, thank you so much for joining me. I'm so excited. If you want to say hi and introduce yourself.
Absolutely. I'm so excited to be here. It's always fun to chat with you, Farah. Thank you for having me. So my name is Teresa Sanderson. I am a nurse and kind of a serial nurse entrepreneur, founder of the Nurses Feed Their Young movement, and a nursing CE consultant.
Awesome. So for those who are watching, put any comments or questions that you have in the chat and we'll see if we can answer some of your questions. So today we're going to be just covering kind of overall reasons. We'll share 5 reasons why you should start your side hustle. And then we'll kind of get into some of our stories of how we started our own business, do's, don'ts, and some tips and strategies on how to get you started if maybe you're thinking about starting a business but not quite sure. So let's get into it. So Teresa, tell me kind of how you started, the business, and how did that feel in the beginning?
Oh man. Well, I think the first time I started a business in nursing was the hospice agency back in the early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the most interesting things about that experience, Farah, was even though I'd been getting ready for it for some time and I was super excited when I opened my doors, the phone didn't ring, right? So you sit there in this office space and you're waiting, but you start a business and honestly, nobody cares, right? Nobody cares. It's important to you. It's your baby. But I remember just that feeling of, ooh, well, this isn't going to work. So immediately and just kind of intuitively, I prepared a bunch of marketing packets. I set a calendar for the next day. These are the places I'm going to call on. I'm going to get started shaking the trees and I'm going to grow my business.
Mm-hmm.
Failure was never an option, and it was never even anything that entered into my mind. So I'm really grateful that for that experience, I didn't have that.
Mm-hmm.
However, years later, after I experienced major depression, the business I'm in right now, I had a lot more work to do between my ears to really get ready to be successful this time around.
All right. Well, I mean, you mentioned some great points, right? Um, and I think we'll kind of get into it in a little bit, but really the number one, I think the number one thing before you start a business for all you nurses listening out there, right? As Teresa mentioned, you have to make sure that there's an actual need, right? That there's an
Mhm.
actual need for the business and that people know about it, right?
Mhm.
You know about it ahead of time.
Yep.
So we'll kind of get into that marketing in a little bit. But really, I think the first reason why nurses should start a business, right, is that additional stream of income. Like, let's say you don't want to go full in just yet because a lot of nurses start that way. That's how I started. I was still working full time and then started my nurse career coaching business about 3 years ago at the same time. And I
Mhm.
know that can seem overwhelming to some nurses. However, I would recommend that that's probably the best way to go, right? To start and support that business. So, what are your thoughts on that?
I think I'm in definite agreement with that because nurses are fortunate to have the benefit of being able to go part-time, even work PRN, and
Mhm.
not have to let go of the side of the pool, related to that traditional income. Um, I think the biggest thing though is, the sign of only having one income stream, the hallmark sign of that is that you're stuck in a job you hate and you cannot leave it. Right. So
Mhm.
if you're feeling that way, if you're feeling that you're in a position that's maybe too small for you or doesn't have the growth opportunities that you're looking for, then definitely explore what could you add? What could you add to what you're doing that's going to give you the fulfillment and the growth opportunity that you need? And side hustle is a perfect way for that.
Yeah, and I think it gives them enough time to really explore, like you said, what it is that they really want to do. And honestly, sometimes it's not anything extravagant. Like some people think that they have to do this whole huge business idea. It's literally, you're either going to be selling a product or a service, and typically providing services are an easy go-to for nurses because we have such expertise, and the intellectual property is kind of already there. We have so much to share. So doing things like coaching, consulting is very easy to start up, because a lot of nurses think like, I probably need a lot of money to start a business, and that's not true, right?
Yep.
So what are your thoughts on nurses kind of exploring what it is that they are experts in, and that they can provide, and that there's a need for?
Great question. And I think it comes down to something as simple as, what kind of advice do people ask you for on a regular basis? If
Mhm.
you're answering the same question for people over and over and over again, obviously there's a need, right? And so
Yes.
is there a possibility or an opportunity for you to turn what you already know into income by just turning that into maybe an online course offering, or starting to write a blog that's going to give you an opportunity to grow your audience? A lot of different ways to look at that, but nurses can easily turn what they know into income without further education, without having to invest in brick and mortar anymore. Farah, I say that my business fits in a backpack. I can work from anywhere. And
Yeah.
that's for me at this point in my life, that's definitely what it's all about.
Yes, yes. And that brings us to the second point of why nurses should consider starting a side hustle or a business, is just what you mentioned, right? That flexibility piece, and having that control over your own schedule, and starting to create that freedom that you really want, right? Because we know that, doing things like, for example, consulting, or maybe becoming a speaker, in the beginning, it's going to take time
Yep.
for you to build whatever business it is that you're wanting to build. However, if depending on what type of life you want to design for yourself, you might want to travel sometimes. I know I love to travel. It's tough though sometimes with kids, and I know you travel quite a bit. But you can travel and speak. There are people that are making quite a bit of money on speaking and things like that. So that's another option. Or even just working from your computer, like you said, just packing up your stuff and having that flexibility. And I know a lot of nurses are looking for that right now. Um,
Mhm.
what are your thoughts on building this business that's going to give you the flexibility that you really are looking for?
Well, I think first and foremost, it is knowing the kind of business that you want. I always say begin with the end in mind. If you're starting this business and what you're looking for is flexibility, and you're looking for, this freedom of schedule and even location, I can tell you that when opportunities come my way, every decision I make about what I will and won't do in business is based on, am I location bound? Or is this something I can do from anywhere? And if it is something I can do from anywhere, then it's definitely going to make it up the next step of the ladder for me to consider, is it really for me? But if not, I'm sorry, I just can't help you with that. It's not in line with my goals, right? And so I think that's so important. And even with that being said, Farah, I think it's important for nurses to remember that as you start your business, when I talk about beginning with the end in mind, are you going to work this business forever? Or will you eventually have an opportunity to perhaps sell your business to someone else who can continue your work and your legacy? So lots of opportunities.
Yeah. And I think one important thing to kind of note for nurses, I know sometimes some nurses might feel a bit overwhelmed and think, well, I don't know anything about business. I don't know if I should really even start a side hustle. But honestly, it's really not as difficult as people think, in terms of, like, nurses think you need a lot of money, that you have to go back to school and get an MBA. Not necessarily. Like, if you think about some of the greatest entrepreneurs that you see out there that are, not nurses, I
Mhm.
follow a lot of millionaires, but some of them don't have MBAs or did not go to school for business. Or even if they did, they typically say that they've learned just kind of doing things on their own and just figuring it out, because there's not one true path, right, to entrepreneurship. everyone's going to have kind of their ways and what works for them. So, can you kind of talk to me about the time and effort that it's taken you to kind of learn some of these business things, because it does not come naturally sometimes, but like, can you speak to that aspect about learning the business as a nurse?
Sure. And I one thing I want to state right out front, though, as you talk about education, that kind of thing, is that I'm an associate degree RN. And I
Mhm.
say all the time, every time I think I've ridden my little degree as far as it'll go, new opportunities will open up for me. So, as far as learning the business itself, many things have been intuitive to me. So I've been really blessed with that. Um, Learning marketing and things like that, a lot of that has just been intuitive to me. But also, I have to say that before I started our hospice agency, I was a branch manager for years for home care agencies and even another hospice agency. And so I took what I had learned from business management in those experiences and what I had learned about marketing that worked and what didn't work. And I was
Yeah.
able to transition that to my own hospice agency. The biggest challenge for me was taking boots on the ground marketing that I did in face-to-face hospice marketing and learning how to transition that to the online space to where I could generate meaningful and sustainable income. But once you master it, you just kind of keep going, and you're going to continue to learn,
Right.
right? It doesn't stop.
Yeah. And I think this is what, like, the beauty of it is, like, yes, I'm not knocking education. I was a former
Mhm.
educator. We love to learn as nurses. I got my doctorate in education and organizational leadership, all that great stuff. The thing
Yep.
about nursing, though, we know, right? Like you talked about, you took those skills that you've learned from previous jobs and you kind of put it all together, and really skill stacking and putting everything together.
Yes.
Know that nurses have really transferable skills that lead to becoming great business owners, right? Because as nurses, we're natural problem solvers, right? We're creative, very adaptable, and we're people, people.
Yep.
A lot of people skills, because that's all we do, right? And we know that business is really about creating relationships and building those relationships. And you mentioned something very important about being online, right? And
Mhm.
I think nurses need to understand that, yes, like, you can have a successful business without building a personal brand and without being the face kind of your business,
Mhm.
and you can be successful. However, if you're kind of starting out on your own and you don't have a big team,
Mhm.
it's truly necessary, in my opinion, to be online and to build that personal brand. And like Gary Vee always says, it's free.
Yes.
You don't have to pay for it.
Mhm.
I know I see you all the time on LinkedIn and
Yeah.
doing the videos, such as myself, and creating the content. Um, and how do you think that's really helped you in your business?
Oh my gosh. Well, it's the difference between, not having an income and making multiple six figures. I mean, and as you said, it doesn't cost me anything. I mean, yes, there's an investment of my time, but my
Yep.
time is spent creating what I believe is meaningful content for the people that I want to serve so that
Mhm.
they are attracted to me and want to do business with me or want to get to know me better and take a step closer. And
Yeah.
that's really what it's all about. But the sweet spot is, and I know you're in this space too, Farah, is that a lot of the content that we create, many people are going to take it and use it and may never need to do business with us, right? But I
Yeah.
think that's the real blessing, is that when people can feel good about getting some meaningful content from us and taking it and move the needle on their life or in their business without
Yeah.
spending a penny, hey man, I feel like I've done a great job.
Yes, absolutely, right? Because
Yeah.
honestly, in nursing, we went into nursing obviously to help people, to make an impact. But I love how you share your content as well. And I do the same to really spread the message to other nurses out there that not only is nursing such a great profession that you could do so many various things, But you can also start a business as a nurse, because even though, back in the day it was kind of an unconventional thing to do, but you see now more nurses starting their own business, their own practice. And if you're a nurse practitioner, or maybe you want to do a med spa, IV hydration, that's great. But, you don't necessarily have to do those large businesses. I've read nurse entrepreneurs. Like, there was one ER nurse who started doing day planners, and she
Mhm.
loved graphic design. She's a millionaire now just
Yeah.
from that one idea, like just doing, the journals and all that. So,
Mhm.
like we're saying, it doesn't have to be anything elaborate. It's just something that you have to be passionate about. And, I know you're passionate about what you do. And I think that's what drives really the consistency, right? Even though, like you're saying, we're
Oh,
creating
yeah.
content, some people will come to us for that help, but some won't. But that's what kind of drives the business, because you have to have that vision, the values, and really what impact you want to make. So, I know, Nurses Feed Their Young is a huge movement for you. So, if you want to kind of talk about that, and how you've come to start this.
Oh, sure. And thank you so much for the opportunity. But Nurses Feed Their Young is, a movement to transform nursing culture from one where nurses eat their young to one where nurses feed their young. It is my passion project. It's been on my heart for at least 10 years.
Mhm.
And honestly, here's one of the most beautiful things about being an entrepreneur is that now that my income is consistent and sustainable, I can focus on my passion project, which is transforming nursing culture, right? And so I've done things that I didn't know how to do before, like get the name and the logo trademarked. And we're launching a member community. It's an online peer support community that's launching actually on Black Friday weekend this year. And it's just very exciting. Yeah. And the thing is, the more I talk about Nurses Feed Their Young, the more nursing leaders and just really high level nursing leaders and experts are coming to me and saying, hey, Teresa, I want to be a part of that. How can I help? And so we have a team of like 20 experts already in the community and just
Mhm.
ready to serve. It's just amazing. But I think we have to start somewhere. And what
Mhm.
I'm doing, like you said, it's not anything that is really rocket science. Everybody knows nurses are suffering. Everybody knows nurses need support. In
Yep.
my opinion, online peer support is probably the easiest way for nurses to get that. And
Mhm.
so that's why I'm creating it. Find a need and fill it. That's the rule in business.
Yeah, so that's amazing. So definitely, we'll share all that information later in the notes, to make sure that you connect with Teresa. And if you're interested to participate or be a member, or just be in that community, definitely reach out to Teresa. So, number three, which brings us to number three, we talked about skill diversification and how nurses have all these skills. But if you start a business, you're just going to acquire more skills, right? And you're just going to keep growing and learning, right? And I think one thing that we talked about that nurses, I think, shy away from, especially since I've been doing career coaching for quite some time. Whether you're a new nurse or an experienced nurse, I think a lot of nurses shy away from self promotion and kind of that personal branding. And because I think we've just been taught to, be so humble and, not kind of really be out there, but it's okay, right? And it's a must if you have a business, right? To promote that business, uh, and to really create these connections. And I think LinkedIn has
Mhm.
really been instrumental for me, even the way we met, right? We met
Yeah.
through the conference at the NNBA conference, the National
Yep.
Nurses and Business Association. Shout out to
Mhm.
Dr. Nana Hart. I know you had her on the show, but just going to
Absolutely.
that conference, like, I didn't even know that there was a conference specifically for nurses interested in business, and that's how we
Yeah.
met. So if you want to kind of speak to that personal branding aspect and connecting with other aspiring
Mhm.
nursing entrepreneurs, and how that's helped you kind of grow.
Absolutely. And first of all, I'll just say, because everybody says I don't want to be salesy. I don't want to be salesy. You know
Yeah.
what? You've got to be salesy enough that at least people know you have something to sell, right? Because if not, you are shooting yourself in the foot. And, but yeah, creating meaningful connections is so much easier than running the race all by yourself. Okay. So when you have the opportunity to participate in conferences, for instance, I've done a couple recently in my local Kansas area and Topeka and different places, just connecting with local hospital leaders and different nurses in the area. Because you know what? If you're a nurse who's working at the bedside or in a traditional setting and you're thinking about a business, there are nurses in the facilities all around me who are doing the same thing, right? They're maybe working in that environment. But when I can go there and just set up a table that says, hey, Nurses Feed Their Young is here, and these are some of the things that we do, I'm making meaningful connections with people who may not need me right now,
Yeah.
may need me later, but they also may know someone who needs me that they could refer to me. So never discount the opportunity to participate either as an exhibitor or, request to speak somewhere, and just grow your network. Even growing your network on social media with people who can help you expand your reach. I mean, this interview today with you, Farah, is a beautiful example of how
Right.
we can collaborate with others to expand our own reach, because there's people in your audience that don't know me, there's people in my audience that don't know you, and so when we collaborate, we grow faster together.
Yeah, and that's such a great point because I think um, there's this kind of school of thought, like, well, kind of old school thinking. Sometimes some nurses might think, or business people might think, well, they're kind of doing something similar, to what I'm
Yeah,
doing. And I don't want to collaborate because it's competition and but like you're saying, it's all about really connecting and collaborating, um, because there's an audience for everybody, right? And you're not going to connect with everybody. And like you said, you'll grow faster together if you kind of share ideas and kind of bounce off each other and see how what other people are doing, what's working, what's not working.
yep.
And I ask people all the time, like when I go to conferences and stuff. Actually, I saw Nena in Nashville, at
Hmm.
a conference that I was speaking at there, and I was asking her a bunch of questions about her consulting and stuff, because really that's how you start getting to know, right? So don't be afraid to make that reach, and even if it's like a 10-minute phone call. I've reached out to other people like speakers and say, hey, listen, I'm trying to break out in the speaking world. Like, what are some tips you have? So, those 5-10 minutes can be really like can transform your business, right? So like making these connections.
Absolutely.
So my number 4 point was preventing burnout could be another reason why nurses should start a business. So
Hmm.
I know with your movement, Nurses Feeding the Young, um, it's all about supporting this new generation of nurses and creating healthy work environments, which we're definitely in alignment with. So
Hmm.
can you talk about how business um, can prevent nurses from burning out?
Oh my goodness. Yes, yes, yes. And I think one of the things, you know, well, I am very transparent that I'm a major depression thriver, right? I crashed and burned in 2010 from depression, couldn't work for 3 years, had a disability application open, ended up never filing it, but I know what it's like to experience that. And I had one hospitalization during that time, and you know what I did there? I did arts and crafts. I was actually, part of our group
Yeah.
therapy was that we were going to go in and we were going to paint some ceramics. And as I was in there, I thought to myself, when was the last time I did anything creative, right? When was the last time?
Yeah.
So having a business allows you to be creative in a lot of different ways. It
Mm,
allows you to be able to pick and choose what are the tasks you're going to do today, because you are your own boss. And while there are important things to be done, you can pick and choose, what do I have the mental bandwidth today to be able to really move forward in my business, and what might work better for me tomorrow or another day this week. Truth be told, Farah, I continue to work as an entrepreneur because I can take the best care of my mental health when I work for myself.
Yes. Amen to that. Oh my goodness, because we see it more and more, and it's very interesting, and it's happened to me as well, where it's going to lead me into my next point.
Mm,
But being an ER nurse, I loved it, absolutely loved doing ER critical care,
yeah.
but it can kind of creep up on you after a while. So that's the beauty of nursing, you can't kind of move around. However, you're right, starting your own business or at least side hustle gives you a sense of
Mhm,
control where you can actually generate your own income, be your own boss.
mhm.
And I just don't know. I just, hate people telling me what to do. So I think I'm just like a natural entrepreneur, right? Like I love taking feedback, but I'm like, don't micromanage me, right? And I
Yeah,
feel like
yeah,
nurses are tired of that. And
yeah.
it's, we're not going to get into all those aspects, but this is kind of what business helps you do, that creative part, especially in the marketing um,
Mhm.
space and, things like that. And I just love it. There's so many things that, nurses can do in business. So I love this conversation. And then number five, it brings me to career security because
Uh,
I know we've talked about this multiple times, but like
mhm.
if you're a nurse out there, like I have my doctorate in nursing practice. I've been a nurse for 20 years, all this experience. If you think you're in your job and you're secure, even if you're in a union position,
Mhm.
guess what? You are not. They will get rid of you like this in a minute. It happened to me multiple times. So if you think you have job security, think again. So this is why, we're so passionate about sharing this with other nurses that like you can have more job security working for yourself. Like obviously it'll take time, but can you speak to that? Because like, oh my gosh, I can talk for
Oh,
days.
yeah, absolutely. And, I graduated from nursing school. I almost don't even want to say it, 1991. So I've been in the game 30 plus years, guys. But in my first 6 years of professional nursing, I went through 7 mergers and acquisitions of
Mhm.
those hospitals where, they tell you, oh, your job is secure. You just need to reapply, right? And so it's just, but really 7 times in my first 6 years, that was just crazy. One hospital system buying another. Now what we're seeing today, though, is seasoned, experienced nurses many times are being let go from facilities because they are more expensive, right? Because they have all the years of experience, they have the tenure, and it's less expensive to hire a brand new novice nurse who's probably not going to be trained. I mean, let's don't even go down that path. But we know there's a lot of problems there too. But
Yeah, yeah.
your stability, you know, you can create it. And when you start that side hustle today, just think about it. If you planted a tree today, 3 years from now, even if it was just a little seedling or sapling, 3 years
Yes.
from now, you'd have a tree in the yard with leaves and shade. Whereas, the same thing could be with your side hustle. You'd have a little something 3 years from now that your future self would thank you about. So I,
Yes.
I always encourage nurses, instead of thinking of another PRN shift, what if you took that time and
Hmm.
invested in starting something for yourself that's going to create the security you're looking for?
I can't speak to this enough. And, my first experience with this, I was the director of education. And I shared this at the NMBA when I spoke there at the NMBA at that conference.
Yeah.
Um, I never, you never think it's going to happen to you, right? I'm
Mhm.
like, yeah, I got a director position. I'm good. This is my dream job, and literally it was a minute. They're like, yeah, we're restructuring. Your position's been affected. I was like, oh yeah, like so when? They're like, yeah, like today. Today's your last day. And I was like, wow, okay. I was like, so this is what it is. So all the people, all the nurses out there that like keep saying, oh, it's like a family. And no, no, honey, it's a business. They will get
Amen.
rid of you like that. So I say, why build other people's dreams and make other people rich and build their personal brand when you can be building your own kind of on the side? So,
Mhm.
I will preach this forever. It's happened to me so many times where I've just, there are great organizations out there, but don't get me wrong,
Mhm.
they don't care about you.
Right. And, you hit on such a key point, Farah, that healthcare is a business, guys. It
Mhm.
is a business. And
Especially in the
if,
United States. Yep. Yep.
yeah, and if you fell off the face of the world tomorrow, that business is a money-making machine and it would continue making money. We have to stare that in the face. And, so again, I think about the future of nursing. And we need the innovators. We need the entrepreneurs. We need the side hustlers because you know what? Care improves and access to care improves when we have concierge nurses available, when all these different services that we have that
Telehealth.
nurses are doing. Yeah, in the entrepreneur space is
Yeah.
improving the quality of care and improving access to care. And isn't
Yeah.
that what we're all after, right?
Exactly. And there's nothing, no, I want to also, some people will be like, well, nurses, you're pulling nurses away from bedside type thing. I'm like, no, if nurses want to be at the bedside, they'll still be at the bedside. But there's always a need for growth in nursing and innovation. And, Rebecca Love, if for you that know Rebecca Love, she is a
Mhm.
big, pioneer in, startups, and she does a lot with that type of stuff. And
Yep.
there was that conference health. I didn't get to go, but there's a lot of like startup tech companies. A lot of
Mhm.
things are happening in the innovation space of healthcare. So we also need nurses to elevate, like you said, coming up with solutions in healthcare because nurses know what nurses need and what patients need. So they're coming
Mhm.
up with some great stuff. Um, but
Agreed.
like you said, it doesn't have to be elaborate. You could start your little side hustle and then not have to work full time if you don't want to do that anymore. So
Yeah.
what are some quick tips as we end? I could talk to you forever. Some quick tips for nurses that are wanting to get into business, that you have for them.
Okay, so I would say first off, identify what problem is it that you solve. And again, that's as simple as asking, what kind of advice do you get asked for all the time? Because if you have something like that, then there's a problem that you're solving for people. I would encourage you to just, you know, develop the idea for your business. What is it? How are you going to serve these people? Will it be an online course? Will it be a product? Will it be a service? How are you going to serve them? You need to
Mhm.
identify that. Then I would say get clear on your messaging. Get clear about how you introduce yourself and how
Mhm.
you tell people about your business. There's something called an I help statement. And the I help statement is I help, for instance, one of mine, I help nurses turn what they already know into income so they can blank, whatever that is, right?
Right.
When you can state what it is that you do in a powerful, short statement like that, it's going to leave people asking for more. They're going to say, wait a minute, how can you help me turn what I know into income? How can you do that, right? They're going to
Yeah.
want to know more, and it just sparks the conversation, and that's what you want. Um, One thing I would caution you on is spending too much time on thinking about should I incorporate, should I form my LLC, should I do this, should I do that. Sole proprietorship is a form of business ownership, and it may be ideal for you. I'm not giving legal or accounting advice, may be ideal for you. But a
Yeah.
lot of people spend their wheels and struggling over that question, should I start my business under this form or that form?
Yeah.
And bottom line is you're just wasting time. Your people are
Yes.
lined up out there ready for you to serve them. How long will you make them wait?
Yes, that is such a big tip because I actually wasted months before I actually started my business, like worrying about the
Mhm.
title, the
Yes.
logo, and I barely use my logo, all that stuff, right? So
Yep.
like honestly, like it's like she said, do all those things, do the market research, register your business, just pick
Yep.
something. It's not forever, it's not concrete, just
Yes.
start. And then a form of payment. That's it. Just start collecting the payment and then invest. Like invest in yourself. So
Mhm.
I've heavily invested in coaching, business coaches, marketing coaches, and then YouTube. Literally Google it and YouTube it. You'll find
Yep.
it. The point she just said is just start. And obviously, if you want to learn more, listen. Shameless plug. I wrote a book, Nurses Making Money Moves. A Nurse's Guide to Starting a Business. You can find it on my website. I'll share that later. But share with them how they can be, work with you and how they could be a part of the movement. Uh, Nurses feeding their young.
I love that. So thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. You can find me at nursesfeedtheiryoung.com. And that's where you're going to find, if you look at join the community, there's a link on there. Click that and it's going to opt you in for our Black Friday event that's coming up here in just a couple of weeks. We're giving away lots of fun prizes and would love to see you there. Also, I'm on LinkedIn at the Teresa Sanderson and on YouTube at Teresa Sanderson TV. And I'm also on Facebook, just Teresa Sanderson. You'll find me.
Yes, definitely connect with Teresa. And thank you for everybody that's joined, and thank you for all the comments. And if you happen to be watching the replay, same thing. Drop any questions, comments. Just Google Teresa, you'll find her on YouTube. Connect with her on LinkedIn. And yeah, just connect with us. And please subscribe to the Nursing Dose with Farah. Also, she has her own podcast. We didn't even talk about that. Yes. What is your podcast name?
Yeah, it is called Dare to Do Nursing Differently, because that's what I'm all about, is just, let's break free of the status quo as nurses.
Yeah, so definitely check Teresa out. It's always a pleasure speaking to you. And really, our biggest thing is just start, invest in yourself, because you really get a return on investment, and you can start making these money moves, right? So again, have a blessed